Jackie Bird. She was the one who gave me the bone marrow transplant.
Save a life while you can in your lifetime.
As a committed participant of the civil rights movement, I also realize what it means to be a change agent. Change never comes without resistance, and today's discussion should teach all of us how to overcome the opposition that will always be present among good leadership. Pastors, leaders of national nonprofit, business leaders, athletes, and even entertainers have influence in our community. We can be empowered and empower others in various fields, not just the media, entertainment, or politics. And today, we must discover how to better use our spheres of influence to see positive messages. When I stop to consider whether we have a strategy in place to ensure that we double or even triple the numbers of CBC members in leadership within the next several years, I worry that our community as a whole fails to place sufficient emphasis on the development of a political pipeline. I hope that in today's discussion, we can address some of those issues as well as others. But it is important to note that the conversation did not begin here, nor will it end here. We must continue the dialogue so that we can strengthen our community by ensuring effective leadership in multiple arenas. We all have a role to play here. Black America is made up of individuals with expertise in many areas. Being an influential voice in politics means that I must live and become the change agent that our community desperately needs to see. Now I'm pleased to introduce the representatives for our event sponsor. Union Pacific's Vice President and General Manager, Eric Butler. And after I introduce Eric, because I have some other responsibilities, I'm going to duck out, cast 2 votes, and come right back. In the churches that I attend in my district, when you raise one hand, that means you're leaving. But when you do that, that means you're leaving, but you'll be back. Okay? Eric Butler was named Vice President and General Manager.
Be sure to leave your tithe before you leave, though.
Yes, Reverend. Eric Butler was named Vice President and General Manager, Industrial Products for Union Pacific Railroad in April of 2005. The company's Industrial Products Group has revenues of $3.3 billion in 2008. It includes commodities such as lumber, paper, steel, and other aggregates, as well as a number of other products. Mr. Butler also has responsibility for Union Pacific's distribution services, a subsidiary of Union Pacific. Without further ado, Mr. Butler, we welcome you. Well, flexibility also is about leadership. We have someone who just walked in. I know you know her. She's the closest thing that we know to the President of the United States, Ms. Valerie Jarrett. Yeah.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How are we doing this morning? Well, first of all, I would like to make a few acknowledgments. Of course, thank you to Chairman Benny Thompson for that introduction and his leadership, his extraordinary leadership for so many years. To our CBC Chairwoman, Barbara Lee, who I just left. To the CBC Foundation Chair, Kendrick Meek. To David Johns, the Senior Education Advisor, and to Angela Rye, the Staff Organizer for Emerging Leaders. It's so terrific to see you all here, and I know the kind of effort that went into organizing today's event, so thank you for everyone who helped to put it together. It looks like you have a fascinating panel. I'm proud to know many of the outstanding leaders that you will be hearing from today. I'm sorry that I can't stay, but I did want to stop in and say a little bit about your moderator, who I have known for many years, my dear friend, Roland Martin. Roland is a national voice with a tremendous reach and influence. I first got to know him in my hometown, Chicago, Illinois, and I have watched him as the rest of our country has watched him with great pride as he has commanded the national stage with an outstanding reputation. He is a person who I think I have heard from every day for about the last, 3 or 4 years at least. He offers me counsel, advice, criticism, and insight. And in all sincerity, he is a dear, dear friend, and I'm delighted that he's the one who is moderating today. He also will be joining the Sunday lineup on TV1. The show is called Washington Watch, and it debuts this Sunday. Oh, Roland, you're going to owe me so much for this commercial. His guest is, his first guest for his show is none other than the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden. Tune in and don't miss the show.
Absolutely. I'm going to have to get another job to pay for that.
I bring you greetings this morning from President Barack Obama and the First Lady Michelle. They are both, yes, a little shout out for them. They are both in Pittsburgh at the G20, and I hope many of you saw the President when he was in New York the few days before that at the UN, where he did us proud, not just as Americans, but really as a citizen of the world. So he is a terrific president. They asked me to give you their regards and tell you how much they're looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow night at the gala. How many people are going to be at the gala tomorrow night? All right. Well, those of you who are there will have a chance to see the President and the First Lady. Our administration, the Obama administration, is proud to be partners with the CBC for this year's conference. You will see us in record numbers, the Cabinet Secretaries, senior White House staff, and other administration officials who will be participating actively in a wide range of panels and discussions and events. And we look to the CBC throughout the year, but this event, this time of year, it is so important because we all get together and focus on our mutual priorities. When President Obama arrived in the White House, I think we all know what he faced. And in fact, we tease him often and say, well, if you knew what you knew on January 20th, if you'd known it back a few years ago, would you still have ventured down this course? And we laugh, but he says, yes, I would, because it is more important than ever that we have a leader of his caliber, of his intellect, temperament, and singular focus on the American people at this very challenging time. He was faced with a staggering, largest ever federal deficit, not one but two wars, an economic global meltdown, which we pulled back from the precipice of disaster, a healthcare crisis, and obviously we're knee-deep, as everyone knows, in the healthcare reform debate, an energy crisis, and a public education crisis, and I think a crisis of confidence about whether the United States was going to be the kind of world leader that the world actually wants, demands, and deserves. He immediately got to work, working hand in glove with Congress to pass the Recovery Act, and we're starting already to see great benefits from those dollars going to work for all of you. But we know that there are still too many who can't find work who want it, and that although this crisis is hurting everyone across our great country, we all know that it is having a disproportionate impact in the African American community. So, we're not going to rest until we get this economy going again. The President says often that until every American who wants a job has a job, he will work tirelessly each and every day on their behalf. But that's not all we're working on with the CBC and its outstanding membership. We're also working to make sure that throughout the federal government we have appointments going to key people with the recommendations of members of Congress who've had a chance to see the extraordinary talent that we have across this country and make sure that our administration reflects the diversity of our country, which is something the President has been committed to throughout his life. In addition, working with the CBC, we were able to deliver on the President's promise to provide tax relief to 95% of working families, to make colleges more affordable by increasing the tax credit for college and for funding Pell Grants, to stabilize the banking system and to get credit flowing once again, to keep people, as many as we can, in their homes and stop the unbelievable tide of foreclosures, to rein in the credit card companies and all of the abuses that too many people have been victim of for so long, to expand health care for children, and the very first bill that the President signed was the Lilly Ledbetter Law to guarantee equal pay for women. Today, there is still an achievement gap, as we all know, in the African American population. Our students are still trailing their white classmates in reading and in math. The high school dropout rate in some cities is nearly 50%. This is devastating when so many jobs in the 21st century are going to require not even a high school diploma, but a bachelor's degree or more. I have the pleasure of having known our Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, since he was a toddler. I'm embarrassed to say I was not a toddler, but he was. I've known him his whole life. And he is committed to providing a world-class education to all of our children. Because let's face it, this situation is not a black problem or a Latino problem or a problem for only the poor. It is an American problem, and there is nothing wrong with our children. Okay. There is nothing wrong with our children. And it is our obligation, and I mean just not ours, the administration and Congress, but everybody in this room, it is our obligation to do better by them. The President is leading the way, and if we all work together, we're going to achieve the goal that he has set out to once again lead the world in college degrees by the year 2020. We are also, as everybody knows, working to solve the health care crisis in our country. Black families can least afford the spiraling cost of health care, and one out of 5 African Americans does not even have health insurance. African Americans of any age or wealth are more likely to suffer from a host of diseases, and the HIV/AIDS epidemic is devastating our community. So we need you, all of you, to get involved. We need you to stay engaged. We need to roll up our sleeves, and we have to acknowledge what the President said throughout the campaign. Change is hard. And for anyone who didn't believe us, I hope you believe us now. But we also know that ordinary people can do extraordinary things if they put their mind to it.
That's right.
So if we take the high road, we focus on our shared duties and our commonality, we keep the debate civil and focused on what's important to us all, there's absolutely nothing we can't accomplish. Thank you very much.
We've received a number of awards over the years for that. We're particularly proud of the award that we've received in the last month, where we were named by Business Week magazine as one of the nation's top 50 best places to launch a career. So for all of those, who are in the room and looking for places to launch your career and skyrocket it, we have about 10 members of our Black Employee Network with us here today. I invite you to see any one of them or myself after this session. We're proud of our initiatives in terms of diversity, as Chairman Thompson was mentioning, and we are proud that if you look at our population rates, our demographics of our workforce, and the percent of our hiring and the percent of the promotions that are occurring for African Americans, they're growing at higher than what our population is in the general population, and in our workforce, they're growing at higher rates than that at Union Pacific. We're particularly proud, and I know Congressman Thompson is gone, but we're particularly proud that since 2005, from his alma mater, we've hired 23 people from Jackson State University. We're also proud of the fact that our affinity group, our Black Employee Network, is one of the longest running affinity groups in the country. This year we're celebrating our 30th anniversary, and we serve a number of different of our major population centers in the Western U.S. So we're excited about being a part of this conference. We're excited about sponsoring this series. We're excited about our company. We encourage you to explore us if you're interested in opportunities. Roland Martin has already received an appropriate introduction from Valerie Jarrett, and I can't supersede that, but I would say that he is an Aggie, and we're excited about him being a graduate of Texas A&M and receiving his master's degree also in Christian Communications from Louisiana Baptist University. So for everyone, we've seen him on CNN, no bull, no bias. We'll do like we're in church, since I think he's got a little bit of a church background, and let's receive the preacher with a hearty amen.
All right. So how are you doing? I'm gonna go back on stage. Actually, I'm not a preacher. My wife is ordained. I'm bootleg. I tell you, she got papers. Some was sent, some went. She got proof. So how are we doing?
Good.
I love this session. I think I've done the Emerging Leaders session at CBC every year for the past 4 or 5 years, and so I've always enjoyed it, and so I appreciate it. And reaching out to moderate this, it's certainly a busy day, as Valerie said. The show on TV1, Washington Watch with Roland Martin, will air every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and then repeat at 5 p.m. Because most of y'all will go from the club to the church, so you're gonna miss the first airing, so you can catch the other one in between the football games at 5 o'clock. But we tape the show every Friday, and so our first guest is Vice President Joe Biden. We'll have House Majority Whip James Clyburn on the show as well. So we're looking forward to it, and also some of the folks on the stage here that you can expect to see them on the show as well. Because one of the things that I want to do with this show, and I ought to be perfectly honest, I fundamentally believe that the Sunday morning news shows that we see right now are frankly arrogant. In that they have a view that since they're all from D.C., they can tell the rest of the country what to think and what's important. You swear black people, Hispanic folks, and Asian folks don't exist on Sunday morning talk shows. And if you even remotely young, you can forget getting on the show. Those shows got like an age limit. And so really what we want to do is be able to talk about the issues that are important to African Americans, but also allow our best and brightest to have an opportunity to shine as well. And so that's really what the goal is. And also we want to hear from folks across the country. So how many folks here not from Washington, D.C.? Good. Praise the Lord.
Wow.
Because one of the things that we all should do, utilizing video and audio and email, things along those lines, allowing people from across the country to be able to interface, to ask questions, also to have their voice heard, because I think that's also a part of that Washington, D.C. arrogance, and that is you do not make these shows inclusive of the country. They're simply all inside the Beltway, and so that's really what our aim is. I want to get right to our panel here. And want to start first off to my far left, one of my homegirls. We've done some panels together. We did the Essence Women's Panel in New York. And so we had a great time, folks. Sophia Nelson, you see the bios and everything that are flashing on the wall there. You've seen her on various media outlets. You've seen her on CNN, Fox News, BET, PBS, and BBC. She's also written for a variety of publications, whether it's in the Washington Post, Essence Magazine, and also the Wall Street Journal, you name it. She also has a new book coming out that she'll be talking about. We're looking forward to it. So, name of the book?
Black Female Accomplished.
Okay, Black Female Accomplished. All right. So give it up for Sophia Nelson. Next to her is Aaron Arnold, CEO of MusicMyBusiness.net, one of America's smartest new companies led by people under 30, according to Inc. magazine. How old are you?
30.
He's 30, all right. So you like on the edge.
Yeah, that on the edge. And that's music is my business.
Because you know you're not going to be in there next year.
Nah,
you're 31.
You got to have growth, though.
Right, I got you.
Have
All right.
growth.
You go try to make that under 40 list next time. He's also a consultant for various brands like ESPN, Heineken, Billboard Magazine, the United Nations World Food Organization, and also Grammy winner Brian Michael Cox. Also MTV's Making the Band, and as well as platinum selling artist Danny DeCane.
Yeah.
All right, good, as long as it ain't Kanye West. All right, give it up for Aaron Arnold. Although Kanye could use your brand advice. To my left, Mark Lamont Hill. You've seen Dr. Hill, of course. He's a political contributor to Fox News. You've seen him sparring with Bill O'Reilly on many times, trying to educate those folks over at Fox. Very difficult, I know. Please pray for him every day. You also, of course, you've seen him writing for a variety of publications as well. Columbia University? Mm-hmm. All right, Dr. Mark Lamont Hill. Stephanie, on my far right, Stephanie Brown. One thing I love about these bios, like emerging leaders, they always put like the age if they're under 30. You know, like, you're like, oh, 30. Stephanie Brown, 28 years old. She's, it always happens, National Field Director for the NAACP. She has been involved with the NAACP for years, also working with their 2,200 branches, but also really getting their young members involved and active in so many different areas. And she was recognized as one of Ebony Magazine's 2007 top 30 young leaders under the age of 30. You only got 2 more years to make that list.
Actually, like 1.5.
I got 1.5 years, right.
Yeah.
So that's right, to that 40 list again. Also, 2007 Lamplighter Award for Public Service of the Black Leadership Forum. Give it up for Stephanie. Anybody can jump out in terms of answering this first question. A year ago at this time, folks were excited. You had young folks and black folks shining shoes, working at convenience stores, doing everything, just engaged by this campaign. People would stop me left and right asking, so 207 electoral college votes. I'm like, yeah, folks didn't even go to college to do electoral college votes. And it was so engaged. A year later, I have the belief that those same people have been engaged in a 9-month barbecue and picnic celebrating the historical accomplishments of the first black president as if that was the end as opposed to the beginning. And so I want to get your assessment on where are those same vibrant, engaged, young voices who were active in the campaign, getting people to the polls, signing people up. They have been missing from the healthcare conversation, not showing up at town halls, not dealing with what's happening with the budget. So I need somebody to explain to me where in the hell did they go?
Well, Roland, I'll start. I think you make an excellent point, and I agree with you. One of the things that's disturbing, and Valerie Jarrett spoke about this, and we all know the numbers in our community with regard to health care. I think 1 in 5 African Americans do not have health care. And so it has been disconcerting to look at the town halls and the protests, tea parties, whatever it is, and not see any people of color involved.
Even in black neighborhoods.
Well, right, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, and I think that's a very important point to make, that we are impacted greatly by what happens in this healthcare debate as a community, and we've been missing in action. So I agree with you. I think the issue becomes how we transition from celebrating and being proud of President Obama and Mrs. Obama, et cetera, and actually transform that into some legislative policy, some action. And I think that's the question on the table.
Yeah, I agree. I think that too much of our politics, not just for this generation, but for, I would argue, black politics in general, remains too reactionary. It remains too beholden to the whims and the images and the representations of media. I believe that we wait for a crisis and then we respond to it, as opposed to articulating a vision, sharing that vision within a community and then mobilizing that vision and actualizing that vision. And it's not just with Barack Obama, although that's a perfect case in point. You could even go back the year before, or 2 years before, when we had the Gina 6 controversy. First of all, we waited until the media told us it was a controversy for us to even respond. It had been going on for months and months and months. Finally, CNN broke it. Fox broke it about 3, 4, 5 months after that. And it became a controversy. And then we got on buses and went down there and protested for a day. But we left cities where there are first-class jails and second-class schools. We left cities where there's police brutality. We left cities where you have first-grade girls, yelling at their teacher and getting arrested for disorderly conduct. You left cities like Atlanta where Janarla Wilson, 17-year-old boy, has consensual oral sex with a 15-year-old girl and gets arrested and incarcerated for aggravated child molestation for 10 years. So we had all these crises that we ignored at the political moments and at the political context that we were located in. We got on buses, we went to Gina, we marched for a day, then we went back home to the same conditions with no response. That's a problem. And then the other problem, I believe, is the lack of organized institutions and institutional responses, particularly among our generation. I'm at Columbia University, there ain't but 50 black people there. 25 student organizations, everybody president and vice president. I go around the country, it's the most mind-boggling thing I've ever seen. You go around the country, you see organization after organization that is fragmented, and we become so committed to internecine debates and fights and pettiness and smallness, and I need to be in the front of the camera, and I need you to be behind, and I need the women in the back making coffee, even if they got a PhD. And we get so caught up in all of this stuff that we don't develop a mobilized response. You can get a whole lot of people to be activists, but it's very difficult to get people to be organizers. Right. And that's been a great challenge that I have seen for this generation, but it's also a bigger problem with black political movements in general.
Absolutely.
I think in addition to that, and I'm so happy that you brought up the Gina situation, there were a group of people mobilizing in Gina before the cameras got there. There were a group that stayed there mobilizing when the cameras and the people left. Similar with the campaign, there were young people all across this country that were mobilized without getting, tweets about what they were having, going on, and without cameras there and everything, who were organized outside of this mainstream media. And even now with the healthcare debate, we just sent a letter to Nancy Pelosi's office. We just sent a letter to we would be a group of about 12 organizations that all have youth contingencies in their memberships. So all the way from Rock the Vote, Black Youth Vote, NAACP Youth and College Division. We represent thousands of young people across this country that don't have a platform, because as you said, we're not going to be on the Sunday morning television shows. And a lot of us are just struggling to have a voice within our own organizations. But we say, you know what, we're tired of not being included in the mainstream. And even if I don't get any video coverage, that's fine, because I'm still going to write a letter to the White House. I'm still going to write a letter to Baucus's office and do what we have to do to make ourselves known. And I think a big challenge for our generation is we always looking for how we can get press and how we can get publicity for what we do. Don't nobody care. If you go knocking on doors, those people need to hear what you have to say. Everybody's not tuned into CNN. Definitely everybody not looking at BET, for sure. And it's that person-to-person connection that we need to have, and quit trying to have the TV or Twitter or Facebook educate us on the issues when we can't just sit down, go door to door when it's necessary so that people can feel engaged in the process.
I think last year in particular, I think it's the difference between the party people and the passionate people. And the reason I say that is because I remember being in Atlanta, there were so many Obama parties, so many celebratory parties. But again, once that was over, it kind of died down. And I honestly think that it starts at home, it starts in schools, it starts in churches, where, at a young age, my parents instilled in me certain values to the point where even before Obama became president, certain issues were important to me, to follow the news, to see what's going on, to not only follow the things that are happening nationally, but just as important, to follow the things that are happening locally, because a lot of times those are the things that affect you day to day. And I just think that that's the issue. So it's like the question is, how do we instill, in particular in younger people, that passion and help them understand the importance of what's going on from healthcare to everything.
I want to go back to what Mark said when you talked about organizing. I believe that the one thing that we never seem to ever give credit to Dr. King, not the speeches, but they were master strategists.
Yes.
They understood short-term, long-term. They understood how to organize. And I'll give an example, and folks can pick up on this here. When they were in Birmingham, when the adults were getting arrested, Reverend James Bevel was training the children.
That's right.
He trained them in a local gym for 3 weeks. And then when all the adults had gotten arrested and Dr. King said, release the children, they'd already been trained. And it seems as if what is missing is the long-term view. And as you said, how do you take a handful of people, magnified, and organize them to action as opposed to just a news conference? Because, I told Reverend Jackson once, I'll support the march on Saturday, but I need to know the plan for Monday.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think there's a few things with that. One, there has to be a commitment to intergenerational institution building. We often have a culture where we push our fathers off the stage and won't let our children on. And so what happens is when you have young people, and I know everybody don't need to be in front of the camera, I agree. But you have young people.
Everybody can't talk.
Right, everybody can't talk.
I'm at home like, ooh, take them off the camera.
I know that's
please.
Right. I know that's right.
Right.
But somebody needs to do some organizing, somebody needs to be part of these organizations, but sometimes these organizations become more about the individual and they become cults of personality, that when the person dies, the organization dies. So that's a huge problem. So we have to have some kind of intergenerational commitment. We also have to cut our organizations across. You talk about Dr. King, which is a brilliant example. I mean, one thing Dr. King understood was that people didn't just need to be locked at the arm, they also needed to be locked at the circumstance. There needed to be ways that organizations that are committed to gay and lesbian rights, are committed to workers' rights, are committed to sanitation workers' rights, they're committed to anti-globalization movements. That's what Dr. King did. He pulled all those people together. And he also had, as a political tactician, He also had a sophisticated understanding of the political and racial landscape. He understood that if in 1960, John F. Kennedy walks through Harlem with a black baby and people dismiss it as a campaign stunt, that's one thing. If Bobby Kennedy walks through Appalachia a few years later with a white baby, it's not coming down his nose, he's crying, he's hungry, we begin a war on poverty. White suffering is less tolerable. That doesn't mean that we concede the fact that we're going to dismiss black racial suffering. No, that's not what I'm saying. However, what we can do is find ways to link these organizations so that we can speak to a broader movement. That's what made Barack Obama so brilliant. He was able to connect people who otherwise didn't care about poor black folk and still get them to endorse a candidate who would ultimately appeal to the sensibilities of black people and fulfill their political needs. That's what you got to do. We have to find a way to be much more strategic in the way we develop our organizations, and we also have to be much more intergenerational. We also have to cut across race lines, class lines, gender lines, and issues of LGBT rights. Somehow that stuff gets excluded from the conversation when that has to always be a part of the table, not the center, but part of it.
Well, Stephanie, I'll pick up on this point. We talked about organizations. I remember I had my radio show in Chicago, and we were talking about a local NAACP branch. And all these people were calling in, they were complaining about it. I said, well, this is how, I said, if Roland wanted to take over the organ, I believe in taking stuff over. I do. I'd take, dude, it'd be like a straight up revolutionary in a minute. But here's what's interesting. We talk about emerging leaders and people say, oh, we don't have a voice. If I'm in a local NAACP chapter and I feel as if they are ignoring me, I'm going to sit back and say, okay, when's the next election? But then I'm going to go back and figure out who won in the previous election by how many votes. So there's not like 10,000 people voting. A person could have won probably about 30, 40 votes. So all I'm going to do is go get 30 and 40 of my homies, sign them up, tell them when to show up, and when I'm going to sit back and just wait.
That's right.
And when it come election, we're going to run our whole slate, and they're going to look up and realize we got a whole new board, and you followed all the rules. They were all members.
But the first
to me, that's how you take over something and work on the inside versus complain on the outside.
I think the first step to that, though, is that you went to the meeting.
Right.
And you decided to go and figure out what was going on.
That's called reconnaissance.
Whatever you want to call it, you showed up.
Recon.
And a lot of times people don't even want to show up, but they'll criticize. You cannot believe the hate mail I get every day from black and white people about the association. But people criticize what they don't know. And so, you're talking about, organizations and young people. One of my biggest challenges is getting adults to sacrifice time and to commit to young people to help train them to be organizers. And I feel a lot of times, you have adults that want to, play and take kids out on community service. But when you're talking about, no, I need you to help me train these young folks to be change agents in their community and to be with them and hold their hand and walk them through the process, people kind of want to back away. That's not as cute. And so I think a big challenge is, one, we always look at organizations' leaders as if they're the ones who control every single aspect of the organization. We have some chapters across this country, they might not even know who Ben Jealous is, and I'm just tell the truth. Ben Jealous is our president and CEO, but you know what? In their community, whoever the local president is, whoever the local youth president is, they have clout because they're making changes. So I think we need to quit looking at the organization either through its history all the time or through who's the leadership and see, okay, how can I get involved locally and make a difference? Because it's not always about who's at the top.
I think it's important that you have to speak the language of young people and understand what they're going through. I think so many times when you have, especially organizations that have been around for so long, they're kind of set in their ways. So the perception from a young person is, oh, I'm not really going to make a difference anyway. And then the second point, I really believe it starts with mentoring. Somebody like yourself, somebody like everybody on this panel. We've all been the benefactors of great mentors. And, it seems that, as time progresses, that's becoming rare, more and more rare. And I just believe it has to start with people kind of taking young people and saying, this is how it was done, these are the opportunities, but also listening versus preaching.
Two things, Roland, back to your point about organizations, and in essence what you're asking is, what are we doing? And we don't have good problem-solving skills, in my opinion. And it's basically what Mark's alluded to. You talked about Dr. King. They actually, you can go back and start in the 1950s, the Brown, all the way through to the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, and you see steady, measured progress. They solved problems, they identified, and then they took action, and they got a result. we don't think that way anymore, which is unfortunate.
Is it because we're looking for the microwave solution?
I think that's part of it.
Man, I ain't getting in 3 months,
Right.
I got to go.
And then the second point to that is you called it intergenerational. I call it cross-generational talk. And by that I mean, if you go back to my parents' generation, baby boomers, you know, they are kind of the landmark generation. They changed everything. You go to the Xers, of which I'm one, you can't get Xers to do much of anything. These young folks, the Gen Ys, at least I give you credit. You're out doing things, you're organized, you're doing things. It's us that have the problem. And I'm not trying to talk bad about us. I'm just saying that a lot of us African Americans have gotten caught up in our status, in our things, in our success, in our homes, in our 401ks, folks. And this economy should have taught us a lesson that all that stuff can be wiped away. So I think that we need to get back to cross-generational where we respect our elders. And the biggest problem I have with sisters, I can't say much about the brothers because I don't deal with them as much, but sisters, and I know you're going to agree with me on this point, in organizations is the backbiting, the pettiness, the criticism, but more than that is we don't listen. We can't shut our mouths and listen to someone who's older, wiser, seasoned, who's trying to tell us something.
That's men too.
And that's something that back when Dr. King and those guys were around, like you said, they trained the youth. Try to train some youth today without them calling you a bunch of all kind of things.
But we also lose sight of the fact that at the speech in '63, King was 34.
Right.
Still a young
I
man.
mean, he wasn't no
That's true.
75-year-old
That's
dude
true. That's true.
involved
That's
in
true.
it. Andrew
True.
Young was 18. I mean, all these guys were 18, 19, 20, 21.
I understand.
And so it speaks to a level of activism I think is important. Let me ask the audience this question. We talk about emerging leaders. Who in here knows exactly what their vision and purpose is when it comes to leadership? Who actually knows? That's why I asked the question, because just a few hands came up. What I've discovered over the past year, and it really happened after the election, I was flying somewhere, and a brother, flight attendant, came up to me and said, man, look, I'm married, I got kids, I was excited about the election, I watch you on television, I'm excited about the President Obama. He said, and I want to do something. Then he said, but I have no idea what to do.
Right. Right.
And so many people, I think part of the issue is they want to do something, but they just have no idea what they want to do. For each of you, what was your process in determining this is what I want to focus on, I want to work on, and how did you just get to that conclusion?
I can say, and just to kind of tie from before, you know, the beauty of youth is that a lot of times we just don't care. And I think a lot of times we grow up and we start to get caught up in a whole lot of other stuff. And, you know, Mark was talking about the organizations. There's so many younger organizers and leaders in this country who they don't care and they're not waiting for permission from anybody to do what they feel they need to do. And so I just think it's really important that as we grow up and as we have our children grow up, that we instill in them not to lose that sense of do what you need to do when you need to do it. As far as my person, I remember I was in the 8th grade. We were doing a Black History Month program. For the first time, I saw a picture of a lynching scene. And I couldn't understand that. As a kid, I couldn't wrap my mind around that. And it touched my heart to the point where I just felt like, I gotta help Black people. And so on the most very genuine bottom level, I felt like, what can I do to help Black people? Just so happened that an older woman pulled me to the side. She said, we're having an NAACP meeting. Why don't you come? Now I knew that there were gonna be boys there too. And at the time I'm 14, I'm into that. You know what I'm saying? So
you're like, cool.
So I went. So I think at the heart, you know, Aaron was saying about passion. My passion was, how can I help Black people?
Right.
And if that means that I'm gonna go to a meeting and figure out, okay, I see what they up to. I'm not really into that. Let me check something else out and just keep striving to figure it out. Like, what are you passionate about? Because people always say, do what you're passionate about. And that's a little cliche, but that's for real too, because it's hard to get up in the morning.
Right.
And do something that sucks every day.
Right.
You know, so that was just kind of my initial entering into what I do now.
I agree with that. Passion is everything. I'm a lawyer by training. I'm a perfect example of someone in the last 18 months of her life has completely changed her life. I was at a big law firm making, you know, in excess of a couple $100,000 a year, putting in the hours, and I hated it. And I knew that my passion was for writing, It was black women and our issues, particularly professional black women. That's my interest area because we have a lot of challenges that go untalked about because, again, we do a lot of masking. There's a lot of depression in the black female community. There's all kind of drama going on. And I was like, I care about this. So I started an organization 5 years ago. I am my sister's keeper. And then I started to write, and next thing you know, it just kind of spiraled. The election provided a great platform, and one of my best friends and sorority sisters said to me, you're always talking about writing. You say that's what you want to do, so why are you practicing law? Why don't you go do what you're passionate about? And I did, and it changed my life, and so now I'm privileged to be here with you good folks and to do a lot of television and writing. I have a book coming out that Roland mentioned, and we can talk about that a little more later, but I agree with you, passion is everything. And I am now, you feel like somebody's breathed life into you. It's an interesting thing versus going through the drone of, I gotta pay the bills, I gotta, you know, I took a big pay cut, but I'm a happier person, so.
Mark?
I think, I mean, for me, it was a long trajectory. I started off as, since I've been 8 years old, I've been part of activist organizations. I was like that kid my parents couldn't quite understand. And I joined like African Revolutionary Organization when I was 8, I was like 9, 10 years old.
You like 8 years old with a leather jacket?
Yeah, sure enough. They thought I was crazy. They thought I was crazy. They were about to send me back down south. and so I was part of those organizations, and I was trying to figure out, I just couldn't make sense of I was just always trying to make sense of black suffering. How can we live in a country that has so much stuff, even black folk that got so much stuff, and yet there's still so much social misery around black people? And so I kept trying to figure that out, and I was part of these organizations. I was with the Move, I wasn't a member of Move, but Mumi Abu Jamal, the Move 9, I was always connected to those people because I'm from Philadelphia, North Philadelphia. By the time I got up into college, I remember I was my freshman year at Morehouse College. And at Morehouse College, you got to go to something called Crown Forum. Some of y'all Morehouse people here, I'm sure, there's always Morehouse people everywhere. And exactly. And you go there, and I remember that first Tuesday I got there, some dude was talking, and he was breaking some stuff down, and he started, getting into philosophy and sociology. Then he started rapping. Y'all know who that was. So it was Michael Eric Dyson, right? It was either him or Nas, right?
Right.
So it was at that moment I remember that I said, you know what, all this activism stuff I'm doing on the ground can be wedded to life of the mind, that you can use a PhD, as he says, to help somebody. And so at that moment I decided to use my work, and I became an anthropologist because I said, white people, anthropologists have been studying black people for centuries, maybe we need to start studying white people. See what that's like. You know what I mean? Let somebody from Botswana go to Ireland, just look at them and see what y'all doing, right? So I began.
Have you been to Ireland? You don't see many of us.
No, I was the only one.
I scared the hell out of them in Ireland.
I left real quick.
You ain't lying.
I left real quick.
Driving down the street going, hey, they're like, oh my Lord.
Right, exactly. So I began to use my degree and my work and my research as a professor, and even this public space on Fox News as a means by which to intervene in public conversations and offer claims that might otherwise be counterintuitive, so that we can have a different kind of conversation going.
All right, I don't know what the hell he just said, but Andy can break it down. Just kidding. Go ahead.
There's a quote that I read every morning, and it says that entrepreneurship is living your life like most people won't, so that later on you can live your life like most people can't. And for me, that...
Well, why don't you repeat that again?
Say that slower.
For the folks in the back who didn't quite catch it.
Entrepreneurship is living your life right now like most people won't, so that later on you can live your life like most people can't. And that quote speaks to me because, just to give you a quick timeline, 4 years ago, I was in corporate America with a very good job, good salary. About 6 months later, I woke up one morning and realized this wasn't what I wanted to do anymore, and I just closed my eyes and asked myself if I could do something for free, what would it be? And it just happened to be music. So I left my job, took an unpaid internship at Bad Boy Records, and then became an assistant for free for Sean Combs. 2 years later from that, or a year later, I launched a company called Music Is My Business, and we've been blessed enough to be on the CNNs and blackenterprise.coms and so forth. And I say all that to say I am a true believer that dreams do come true, but I think it's a matter of the people that want to be good and the people that want to be great. And that's one of my favorite books. And I think if you follow your heart, it removes all the obstacles that you may face as far as fear. I realized one thing earlier, that money alone won't make you happy. It's about having a sense of purpose. And for me, my goal was to be that next generation of young black executives to influence music and business, because that's never shown. We always show the other side of entertainment, the artists and so forth, but we never show the people behind the scenes. And I always say, you can have an all-star team of basketball players, but without a coach, they won't win a championship. So for me, that's why that's important, and that's just my take on it.
Roland, one thing on what he said to young folks out there. Did you hear what he said? He said he worked for free for 2 years for Sean Puffy Combs. He could pay him, but he worked for free.
He said he couldn't.
But he could pay you, obviously. But my point is, you did something because you saw the longer term goal. And a lot of young people, I interned on the Hill, did all that stuff. It was hard, for free. You work, you got to have housing, and most black kids don't do it because our parents can't afford to put us up and do the housing and whatever. What I'm saying is, he made the sacrifice now to reap the benefit and the relationships later, and that's something I would tell young folks to do.
And you can't be afraid to fail. And I think that's a lot of times our fear will get the best of us. You can't be afraid to fail. And
I was just going to say one thing. Going back to the question about vision, visions remain the same because your vision comes from your heart. Your plans may change, but your vision never changes. So once you figure out what that vision is and you begin to execute, key word meaning being execute, everything else is going to flow how it's going to flow. You're going to fail. For every one success, I probably have 2 or 3 failures, but all it takes is that one success, and it kind of erases everything else.
And that's really why I asked the question, because when I asked the folks in the room, do they know? And very few hands went up. In all the years that I have been coming in during these sessions, what they have tried to do is they've tried to talk about this is how the political process works, and this is what happens here. And I have always said that I remember moderating a session when Congressman Harold Ford had this, and they were talking about what happens on the Hill. And I told him, I said, Congressman, they don't give a damn about none of that stuff. I said, you've got to help people get to where they can make the decision to become a leader. And so all of this is sort of trying to frame this properly. And when we talk about, when we use phrases like young people and kids, whatever, the reality is there's some people in this room who are over the age of 40 who still don't know what their vision is. And so there's one reason why we have to do that. If I had to, in answering my own question, it's also understanding the lane that you are in. I went to a communications high school. My dad watched 5 hours of news a day, read the newspaper, didn't go to college. Mom didn't go to college, but he watched enough news where I'd be the smartest cat in the whole room. I remember when I was graduating, he said, you sure you want to go in journalism? I said, dude, 5 hours of news a day, one of your damn kids was going to journalism. I mean, he watched every newscast available. But this was before cable news. He was watching news all day. But I went to communications high school, so I've never changed in 26 years from what I decided at 14. Now, when I say stay in your lane and understanding vision, when I'm on the radio in Chicago, it's not my lane to be leading a march. It's not my lane to be gathering petitions. In my lane, though, I'm talking about what they are doing and giving voice to what they are doing in the position that I am in. And so I can utilize TV One show, being on CNN, syndicated column, being the senior analyst for the Tom Joyner Morning Show, being able to be in magazines, giving speeches across the country to bring voice to the people who are doing that. And understanding how that works. And so that's also the piece. So although you may say, well, I have a job, but I want to do something on the outside, maybe the job that you're doing is linked to your vision on how you can actually help black folks.
That's exactly right.
And so many people, I think, really miss that. They miss how that actually works. Now, we talk about in terms of how it got started, but I want to deal with the issue what you mentioned when you said fear. Because there's somebody sitting here saying, man, I don't know, Sophia lost her mind walking away from a couple $100,000 a year. I ain't really trying to do that. Or folks who say, I'm not going to intern for free. But is it a question, again, of understanding the long term? And that is, that you are, in essence, making an investment on the front end, and it likely will pay off on the back end. How do you tell someone sitting here to confront that fear of taking that step, creating that vision, and becoming far more active?
I tell you, because I think you're right. I think part of this is also your successes are much less instructive than your failures sometimes to young folk. So when I go around the country and talk to young folk, I talk about, they ask about TV, they ask about the PhD, they ask about all that stuff. But I always tell them after Morehouse, I dropped out of Morehouse. I was playing basketball. Basketball wasn't working out so good. Me and the coach had disagreements. I thought I was good. He didn't, you know. So we had all this stuff. So
I've been every night you on Fox, like, I hope his ass watching right now.
I been at Lenox Mall train station. I never forgot this moment. I was sleeping on the ground at Lenox Mall train station, and a brother who was homeless, he had been there for many years, he woke me up, and he said, "You don't belong here." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You don't belong here." And he said, "You're trying to fulfill a life, and you're trying to do something that isn't you. You have access to a whole lot of stuff." He didn't say exactly like that, but he said, "You got a whole lot of stuff you could do. You need to do something else." And I remember the thing that I feared the most about getting a PhD, because he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to get a PhD. I want to teach one day." He said, "Why don't you do it?" I said, "It takes too long." He said, "How long do it take to get a PhD?" I said, "Well, I got to finish undergrad. It's going to take me 3 or 4 years. Then I'm going to get a graduate school. It might take me another 4 or 5 years. It might take me 10 years from now." He said, "Fool." He said, 10 years going to go by anyway. You just ain't going to have a PhD.
Right.
And I never forgot that, because at that age, there's a sense of time that is so warped. You know what I mean? That you think like 10 years is forever. That's been a lot more than 10 years ago. But it feels just like that. And a whole lot of people in the room can remember 10 years ago and 15 years ago just like that. And so what we have to do is instill in young people a sense of time and a sense of delayed gratification to let you know that it is, in fact, worth it. And if you don't make those decisions, you're still going to get older. You just ain't going to have a PhD.
Right.
And so that's been the issue for me, is helping them get rid of that sense of fear.
I think the other thing, too, is to have fear is, I think fear is probably one of the, maybe it's the most negative emotion we can have in many respects, because it stops you from your destiny. And I think that one of the things that I'd like to see us do more of as a community, for example, one of my passions is before I die and close my eyes, I'm going to have made a change somehow in this country to bring black men and black women together where they marry again, have families again, love each other again, and do those things again. And to me, one of the biggest things you have to have in your journey is parents that support you. It could be grandmom, it could be auntie, it could be your uncle, whoever, but I think that having that person in your corner that always says to you, no matter what, you can do it. I had that with my mother. She's here. She's always with me. But, you know, it's just having that
your mama
person.
Here?
Yeah, she's here. She's over there.
Okay, where your mama?
Mama over. Stand up, man.
Mama, stand
That's
up.
her.
There you go. All right,
Anyway,
cool.
And, you know, this is a woman who's, you know, she has a 2-year degree. She's an RN, but she worked 80 hours a week so that I could become a lawyer and go to college. My brother has a master's degree and is a minister.
I want to know what she thought when you left the law firm.
Well, you know, we had a
All that money, right?
Girl, I will strangle you. No, go ahead.
She went,
you know y'all had that conversation,
she
too.
did, we did.
Yeah.
She went Claire Huxtable on me, you know what I mean? So it's one of those things, but it's all good. But again, she supports what I do, and I'm on a serious note, I can't stress enough to you how important that is in your life, that helps you overcome the fear, because that person just pushing you, saying, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Your faith is also going to be critical, but I think that sometimes we underestimate the value, again, of the family unit, and we are, in our community, again, you see this, there's a lot of isolation, there's a lot of, it's about me, we're not doing that anymore, we're not pushing each other, we're not a community in the sense we used to be, and I think those things have to come back.
I want to say, in addition to fear, ego oftentimes gets in the way of where we're supposed to be, and also you have to be able to be led.
Bad ego.
Bad ego.
Yes.
No, I'm explaining that after she get done, but go ahead.
Right, you're right.
Y'all know the ego I'm talking about. Folks that they head gets a little too big. That type of ego, or the ego where you feel like you're too good to do something. And between ego and feeling the sense that you have to be led, or that you are being led, or you're being called to do a different purpose. And sometimes you're being led in a way you think like, are you serious? Like I believe in God. You know, God, you want me to leave my $200,000 plus job to like work somewhere for $25,000? Like, I'm not understanding this. And sometimes that goes with the whole delayed and thinking about your years as not being as long as they are, because you never know why you're in a situation today and how that's going to impact you 10 years from now. Absolutely. And so getting over some of that ego and that fear and feeling that you need to be led, I think that some of those things can also tie in to help you get to where you need to get to.
I think it's also about, especially for younger people, us just seeing examples of people that have done it before. I was blessed enough to be a part of an organization when I was in college called NABJ, which is when I first met him. And the reason I bring that up...
National Association of Black Journalists.
Yeah, National Association of Black Journalists. I remember that because I remember my freshman year of college, I had to write for the NABJ Monitor, and I actually had to interview him. And there were other people that would not give me the time of day, but Roland sat there, talked to me, I got my interview, and my job was done. Well, from there, like, that meant the world to me. And people like him, I had one of my mentors in the back, David Albritton, they're people that have just sat there and just coached me or just gave me their time. So immediately I became vested in his growth and his career, seeing him grow, which made me think that I could do it. And, you know, I believe as young people, like, yeah, we need to have mentors, but you also have to seek mentors. You have to seek mentorships. You have to seek organizations. And when, even though I'm not technically in media anymore, it was that organization that taught me how to hustle, taught me how to network, showed me the importance of if I write for the NABJ Monitor for 4 years in a row, that I'll get a job. If I had stayed in journalism, I had a guaranteed job by my sophomore year. I just chose a different path. But again, it's about, as us being young, you have to seek some of those opportunities. And then as people who are in those positions to help, we have to make time. I mean, it's like I said, the little simple interview that he gave me literally changed my perspective and outlook on a lot of different things. And then the other thing is, I have fear of failure. You know, I have fear of looking back 60-something years now. I could be rich, have grandkids, whatever, but saying some 20 years ago, I didn't take that chance. To me, I think the worst thing as a man or a woman is to have regrets.
Yeah, that's true.
And I want to say too, I'm sorry, Roland. And also having peer-to-peer mentors,
Yes.
and your peers who are willing to elevate you, even though they might have to take a step back, and being that person for somebody. I mean, I remember I had lunch with Angela Rye, who put this together. She said, "Steph, do you want to be on this panel?" Now, Angela could have very well been on this panel. She is so dynamic and brilliant. She could have put herself on this panel. So for my peer, my friend, to say, you know what, Steph, you want to have this opportunity? Of course, I say yes. You know what I'm saying? I just think that sometimes, even in peers, we get so competitive. In this DC area, it's a trip. People just will tell me about it, and people will literally put your entire reputation to shame so that they can elevate themselves.
Absolutely.
For what? Because black folks, we all need to come up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that peer-to-peer relationship and that respect is really. I see you, David. You too, boo.
Let me a couple of things that I think sort of walks folks through this whole process. When I talked about different levels of ego, I remember when I was at my high school, my television instructor, sophomore year, we did not vibe. And she put me aside, she said, "You are the cockiest student I have ever met." She said, "But I know when you leave here, you're gonna be the best student ever come to the school." And what she understood was, my attitude was, I'm going to learn everything I can, and I'm walking into the door making it clear that I am going to leave here as the best that's ever walked through. And so I allowed that to drive me in everything that I've done. So when we talk about fear, fear of being a leader, fear of doing anything, talk about NABJ. I ran for student rep in 1989. And made it clear that I'm actually we're gonna win. I mean, it wasn't no choice.
Right.
I was like a mafia threatening folks. You gonna vote for me? Trust me.
You got to. Stronger.
Because I understood in terms of the vision I had for it. Right. But the point there was interesting when we talk about emerging leaders. It said people are so afraid of, well, I don't know, I'm not sure. And to me, you're losing the battle from the beginning because you're afraid to even start. And it's not always even just having parents who are always involved. I believe, and I know for a fact, I always witnessed my parents as being on the cusp of going to the next level, but always falling back. Right. And I was sitting there saying, oh no, I'm gonna jump the hell over that line. Right. And so they look at me now like, I don't know where he got all that from, because it didn't come from us. But it actually did. But I made a decision to actually go to that particular next step. The other thing I think which drives people with fear, and trust me, they're sitting here, and it's the next phase of this conversation, is understanding what a leader is. And I want the panel to speak to this. I do not believe that a leader is someone who has the title of CEO, right, who has the title of boss. I recall working at Wendy's in college, and a guy came by, and he ordered a hamburger, fries, a drink. I fixed it. Cool, I'm done. I turn around, I go in the back, I come back. the burger is laid out on the counter. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this dude? And so he asked me to step over. I'm like, yes. He goes, very good piece of bun, very good bun, very good meat was cooked well. I'm like, something wrong with this white dude. I don't know what to. So he started going through the lettuce and the tomato and the application of the mustard and the mayonnaise. And I'm like, okay, I need to know what's your point. And then he says, are you a manager? I'm like, no. He said, are you a assistant manager? Nope. Crew chief? Nope. Assistant crew chief? Nope. I'm like, dude, what's up with all the questions? I find out he was the actual district manager doing an inspection. He's looking at my clothes, looking at what I was wearing. He's like, wait, pants are pressed, apron is straight, everything is straight. He's like, okay, I don't understand. I said, okay, did y'all not train us to fix the burger like this? Yes, this is how I also want the burger when I order. What he was amazed by was that I did not have a title, but I was a leader in the restaurant.
That's right. He took pride.
And I think what also happens when we talk about how do you talk about emerging leaders or to become a leader, we lose sight of the fact that you can influence every decision in an organization, and you can be sitting in the back of the room the whole time if you know the rules, if you know the process, if you know how to use persuasive skills. And so speak to situations that you have been in where you were not the noted leader, you were not elected, but you had the ability to impact all the decisions just by virtue of your presence.
You want me to start?
Take a pick.
That's actually a tough one. I agree with what you said. I think that for me, the most important thing probably in the law firm structure, and you know about big law firms, they are very top-down. They are very rigid. It's all about money, and it's all about what you're bringing in. It's what have you done for me lately. And I think that for me, everything that I do in my life is about relationships. And I think that not only knowing the rules, Roland, are critical, knowing what your organization's processes are, procedures, et cetera, but also knowing how to build the right relationships with the right people. I will be candid, if you look at the numbers, most African Americans in large law firms are not the big rainmakers. There are exceptions to that rule, but again, it's still far and few in between. And so what you have to learn in an environment like a big corporation or a big law firm is how to survive. Not just survive, but you got to learn how to thrive. And so what I did was, for the time that I was there, I built very good relationships with the people who were in the right places, strategic places. And I also started this organization for professional women of color, knowing that that was a big hole for us. Most firms do terrible with black women, Latino women in their structure. So I started an organization, I built the right relationships, and it allowed me to have a lot of influence where the managing partner was calling me to do things and other folks, because I knew I couldn't go out and make the rain that I needed to make, not yet. I couldn't bring in that $1 million, $2 million account, but I learned to maneuver the system in such a way and fill a hole and a gap that they didn't have, which made me valuable to the larger organization.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, it does.
No.
So in
maneuver.
essence, the creation of that entity inside the law firm gave you leverage on decisions.
Absolutely.
And I take it there were other people sitting there going like, why in the hell is he calling her?
Absolutely. And of course, you all know what happens then. People want to take you out. So
Right.
It is what it is. And usually there are people that look like you that want to take you out. That's the bad news about
Man,
that.
mad because they didn't think about it.
Well, yes. But my point is that all I'm saying to you, again, young folks, what he's saying is, what I'm saying is, you don't have to have a title. You don't have to be the partner. You don't have to be the man.
I hope you ask Joe Biden them kind of questions.
Yeah.
Oh, I got some questions like that.
You gonna mess Joe up. I can't wait to hear what he says.
Joe.
Yeah. Whew. I think for me, the two main strands of my professional life, my primary life is as a professor, as an academic, as an anthropologist. My second job is as a sort of public intellectual, or someone who intervenes in these public conversations. I think in both ways, I am not a leader as such, but I'm able to, again, to intervene in those public conversations.
Thought leader.
There you go.
Because what's happening is when you are speaking publicly or even on television and radio, you are causing other folks to think you're making them aware of stuff they never thought of. And so it means when you're a thought leader, or it actually goes back to the definition of somebody being a griot.
Right. And that's exactly right. And I think that's how I thought about what I did, was I didn't necessarily want to be a politician. And based on my sort of the political movements I was a part of early on, sure enough, I couldn't be a politician, right? If they got Van Jones, they
I'm with
would
you,
get me.
dog, because I cuss a voter out.
Right.
I'll be on YouTube.
Right.
Like, did y'all see Roland cuss the voter
Exactly.
out? Yeah, he did. He
Your
straight
campaign will be
cussed
2
him out.
days. Right.
Oh, I know. I have my own YouTube channel.
Right, I'll be right with you. That's what I'm saying. So I made a different decision. So as an intellectual, as a scholar, my job, again, is to offer claims that might be counterintuitive, to ask different questions and then offer them to the public so that the leaders in politics and education and so forth can make different decisions, so that we're not just talking, for example, if we're not just talking about an achievement gap, which itself presumes that there's some sort of gap between the way black people learn and the way white people learn. I say, well, let's change the question. Let's call it an education debt. Let's talk about the lack of money being provided to black schools, so that then the onus isn't on, you see what I'm saying? The onus isn't on black kids for not learning, it's on for these schools for not giving them access. Let's not talk about just driving while black, let's talk about patrolling while racist. It's a whole different way to think about what we do. And so that's my job, I think, as a scholar, is to offer data and evidence to make that true. It's just common sense that, black people get pulled over more because they commit more crimes. We did studies and said white people on New Jersey highways are much more likely to have guns and drugs in the car. Yet black people are much more likely to get pulled over. That evidence makes it harder for whoever, for Sean, whoever, or Bill, or whoever, to make a claim that black folk are just criminals, right? And then in the public sphere, sometimes I get the opportunity to articulate those things myself. Right. And again, to sway public opinion, to offer a different perspective. So that, like, for the last 24 hours, at least where I'm at, we've been talking about that kindergarten, that kindergarten class singing the Obama.
You tried to get me talking about it last night.
Right.
I was busy.
Right. Is that right? How about it?
I was busy.
Right. And I feel like I got to talk about it, so it ain't just it doesn't turn into this conversation about cults and Nazi youth and Hitler youth and all this stuff. We have to intervene in that conversation and say, wait a minute. They've been singing songs about every president for years, and even if you have a problem with that, there's a whole lot more sort of funky stuff going on in school than one isolated district in Burlington Township. So there's this way in which, as an intellect, as a public voice, or as a thought leader, as Roland put it, we're able to talk to the public directly and change conversation. If you don't think Roland Martin had an extraordinary impact on the last presidential election, you are fooling yourself. He had an extraordinary impact, much more than a whole lot of politicians. That's what we have to think about. And finally, just watch the show. Seriously, watch the show. We complain that black folk don't get shows, and then when they get shows, we don't watch them. So please, DVR, make sure you watch the show and support the show. That's why it's there.
Right. I think it's interesting that
between you and Valerie, I'm gonna be broke by the end of the day.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned Roland and having an impact, because again, I remember when you started building that relationship with CNN, I just thought it was just real smooth how you position yourself. I was like, okay, all right. and the reason I say that, because I think no matter what medium that you're a part of, it's really at the end of the day how you position yourself. And I've always had this theory, like, I think a lot of us chase people asking for things, wanting things, but at the end of the day, I believe in creating your own space. Mm-hmm. And I think once you've created your own space, that makes you a leader. You might not be super rich, but you are a leader. If you have one person that's willing to come to you for advice and ask you something, then now all of a sudden you're deemed as a leader, whether you have the title or not. And I can remember in particular being in corporate America, obviously being the only person of color, but one of my clients wanted to break into the whole millennial entertainment space. And no one else on my team had any idea. They threw a bunch of magazines, and basically it was like, how can we get into that space? And I was of that space. So all of a sudden now, at a very young age and very early in my career, I am being deemed as an expert or i.e. a leader for that particular account. And I think if you take that approach, I think that's how you become a leader.
Stephanie.
It's interesting because I started off as the National Youth and College Division Director for NAACP when I was 25.
That's when we first met.
Oh, yes.
I was killing her over this lunch.
Well, we're not going to go there. But it's really, and you gave me a lot of really, really good advice. And my biggest struggle was, I was coming behind Jamal Harrison Bryant, who was director, and Jeff Johnson, who was director, and Brandon Neal, who was director, and Stephanie Brown. Like, I'm an organizer, and people put these assumptions on you as a leader. Like, a leader should be a great speaker, and a leader should be this big personality. And I'm like, no, I just help kids to create campaigns on their campus. Like, that's, I think a lot of times, we think that we have to be a certain person. And at the end of the day, my job is to make sure that young people's voices is heard in this civil rights arena. And so I think a lot of times, I know I have influence because I have all these young voices behind me saying, this is what we need, and we need somebody to be able to, vocalize their concerns, because a lot of young folks get really downtrodden in this society, and especially amongst our organizations. And just another quick example is I had to be a file girl and get coffee for a company. When I left NAACP, because I got so pissed off with them, I came back evidently, but I left for a while because I got fed up with NAACP, quite honestly, and I ended up without a job, and I had to get coffee and file papers. And I think I got a Howard University degree, but I recognized, if I didn't make that fresh pot of coffee, it's going to be some pissed off people. Right. So I told myself, I'm a gosh darn leader in this company because I get the coffee. Right. And I think that sometimes you have to recognize even where you are, and it might be in a non-traditional type of capacity, you are a leader. You are influencing people because you can change attitudes. Right. People are serious about their coffee and getting their files right. Right. And so you have to,
especially
if all you do.
I know that's right.
Let me tell you something.
Man, that's some coffee.
If anybody is a receptionist out here, you are definitely the leader of your organization by being a receptionist and making sure people get their calls right and people are buzzed in and having a happy face. So no matter what it is that you do, you are a leader. You just have to, as Mark said, kind of flip the discussion or flip the question.
Here's what's interesting about the conversation we had, and Stephanie talked about that following Jamal Bryant, following Jeff Johnson. Because I was on the board of NABJ as a student, and I was very assertive. I was like, I ain't play that. I didn't care about titles. You can work for the Washington Post. I ain't really care. And at the end of those 2 years, I passed more legislation than anybody. I ain't have a vote. But it was leveraging the relationships. And I felt that Stephanie was never appreciating what she brought to the table. And we had that lunch. I was like killing her. She's like, yeah, but they won't let me do this. I was like, let. Right. Damn, do.
Oh, he's right.
And she was at the table kind of like, okay, this dude is like really crazy. But because I was all about
I've come a long way though, right, Roland?
Right, you come right. Because I was like, look.
I kicked down the door now.
All right, okay. Because I had to fire it up. First she was scared like, this man is crazy. Because I really do believe in just taking stuff over. Because I think from a leadership standpoint, if you wait for somebody to say, now it's time for you to lead, that will never happen.
I know that's right.
It is not going to happen.
Ever.
So you have to do it. And so it transitions to the next point. And that is for you to speak to two critical words, I think, for anybody who wants to be a leader, who is a leader, or whatever capacity they're in, that is stay focused. Mm-hmm. How often have you been in a situation where folks have tried to get you to do something, be involved in something, going back to your lane, that you not even a different lane, that's a whole different highway. Mm-hmm. And how did you struggle with that? And how did you come to the conclusion that, wait a minute, but if I start doing what you want me to do, I've now run from my vision, I've now jumped out of my lane, and now what God had designed for me, I'm now on some other different path.
I mean,
staying focused.
For me, one of the greatest lessons I learned is having the ability to walk away. And it's hard to walk away. You know, when I first moved to Atlanta, I was in a very good situation working with somebody who was, relatively influential in the music space. But I found myself putting in about 18 to 20 hours for his vision, not my vision. And it got to a point where I was just like, I'm not building my vision. And I saw a show on HBO, the Atlantic City, whatever, about with the pimps.
Entourage?
No, actually with the pimps or whatever. Oh. And I was like, I was just looking.
American Pimp?
Yeah, American Pimp. Yeah, and I was looking, and wait, now wait a minute. Now wait a minute.
That was the Hughes brothers.
Now, right.
Who did Men's Society.
Now wait a minute. I know this is about to sound crazy, but this was real talk. So I'm watching the show.
You gonna break down some pimp advice? Hey.
I'm a position.
Wherever you can get it from,
I am from
if it
Chicago.
worked for you, pimp it.
I am from Chicago. But, I was looking at these young women, and, they were doing what they were doing. And meanwhile, the pimp or whatever was in the hotel room. He wasn't offering no protection or nothing. And so these young ladies would get all this money and take this money back to the pimp. They wouldn't even take their percentage. And I was just like, this doesn't make sense to me. And then I was like, oh, I'm doing the same thing. I'm allowing somebody to control my vision. Every time I have an idea, I say, hey, what do you think about this? And if they say no, probably because it didn't come from them, it was shut down. So there goes my vision again. And it was that night that I walked away. I sent an email from my BlackBerry and said, I'm not coming back. And everything since that point has been amazing for me. And so that's why I use that analogy, because at the end of the day, I mean, that's how I looked at it. Is, you know, some people try to put you in situations, and you just have to be able to walk away, and that's the best advice.
Oh no, look, I mean, like I say, if any advice works, it works. I mean, Tony Robbins is influential with all kinds of pimps. But I'm serious. But the reason I make that point, is because it's a valuable one. Because in reality, when you are in the situation in the workplace, when you are in the situation in the office, you are being pimped.
Right.
I mean, that's just what happens. Somebody's using you to drive their agenda, and you're totally off focus. But the same thing, Mark, you know, where we are. I tell folks all the time, okay, you know, I did free television 4.5 years. People don't realize. When they say, this is so-and-so who's a Democratic strategist, they ain't getting paid.
Right.
When they say this is so-and-so, a Fox News contributor, getting a check.
That's right.
You can always tell who's getting the check and who's not. 4.5 years. And so my deal was, you're on the air, doing it free, so you got to make a decision. Right. Do I push a book? Right. Am I pushing a website? Am I pushing a product? So if y'all going to pimp me, I'm going to pimp your airways, everybody getting pimped.
Right.
That's it. Right. No, that's...
And one other thing to that, somebody somebody told me that if you can't be used, then you're useless. So, you know, for all those people that say, I don't want to get pimped, but at the end of the day, if you have nothing to offer, you can't be used, then you're pointless, and somebody else is going to fill that void.
Sophia, stay focused.
Well, in terms of staying focused, I think that it's funny, you know, I was thinking about this a couple weeks ago. We have these devices now. We got BlackBerries, we got iPhones, we got stuff. And
I was over here tweeting.
We are, if you think about it, we are more...
Multitasking.
We are more disconnected now than we've ever been connected. And there's a reason for that. Because these things, these gadgets we have, they don't keep us focused. Actually, they distract us. And if you think about your day and you just think about what you have to do in your personal life, in your professional life, a good friend of mine, her name is Gloria Mayfield Banks, and some of you probably have heard her speak. She's fabulous. She's a big exec in Mary Kay's sister, and was actually roommates with... who's the White House Social Secretary? Desiree Rogers.
Desiree Rogers.
And Gloria has a thing that she says, and she says there's 3 things a day you should, 3 things every day that you should have on your agenda that you have to do after grooming yourself, feeding yourself, you know, doing whatever personal things you have to do. And I started trying this out. I was like, she's crazy. There's no way I can do 12 things in a day. And when I started doing the 3 things, I realized that I got a lot done. And what I'm saying to you is, all she's saying is focus. Pick out the most important things you have to do in your professional life, in your personal life, whatever, and get those done. And don't allow all the noise, the peripheral noise that comes to all of us. Because if you think about it, in your day, the BlackBerry's going off, there's 600 emails in the box, the kids are calling, somebody's upset, this is going on. You can't possibly stay focused when you're reacting to everything that's around you. So all I can say to that, Roland, is stay focused means what it means. Stay focused. Pick out the things you have to get done and get them done. I will tell you, writing a book, for those who've written books, Mark has, Roland has, this is my first book. It's a major publisher. We're doing a lot of research, national research, black men, black women around the country. I've never done anything harder in my life, and I'm a lawyer, and I thought it would be kind of easy because I know how to be organized. But it's the temptation not to be focused on your topic and get off on 50 other things, and then you got all this research, and you get excited like, oh, I can't wait to tell them what this says. But you have to stay focused, and it's taken a lot of discipline, and it's very hard. And so all I can say is 3 things a day. I want you to try it. Everybody, next week, I want you for every day to pick 3 things you've got to do, and don't let anybody else move you off those 3 things. I don't care what it is. Watch what happens when you focus. You're going to get a lot more done.
Stephanie, in organizations, it happens as well. People who are involved in causes, people who are activists, whatever, same thing can happen. That is, you are focused on this particular issue, whether it's the environment, whether it's registering folks to vote, and somebody comes along and say, hey, here's a really important issue affecting black folks. And all of a sudden, folks say, that sounds great. Then they veer over there. Then they drop us over here. The next thing you know, nothing ever gets accomplished.
Tell me about it. I feel like I live that every day.
So how do you, in your position, keep your folks in line and keep them focused?
it's interesting. We have a new staffer that just came on, and we were talking about our work plan for our department and how we need to talk to our board and talk to the executives of the association and let them know, look, we're only going to work on 3 things in 2010. And we're going to tell them that, and I'm like, now you know that's not the truth, because they're going to come and say we need to do this over here, we need to do this over here. But when we do our work plan, we're going to build it as such that we're going to only do 3 things. And no matter what anybody else says, we're going to be really focused on what we know we need to do, and we're going to plan it out that way. And I think planning and taking the time to plan and organize is a missing component that a lot of us don't do because we do rush through things. And I also just want to say on that, you know, people can also get you off focus.
Amen.
I mean, I had an ex-boyfriend who almost ruined my life because he got my self-confidence so low, and my focus was so off. And so I just think we have to, you know, be really cognizant of the people that are in our lives and the people that can drive us crazy and how we can get them out or how we can isolate them. Because to me, you know, I can deal with the organizational pressures and stresses and changing it. Because, you know, black folks all over need a lot of help. Maybe we need to put a lot of attention here or some attention here. But I find that the people who try to get you off focus for either their personal gain or not is a bigger mind that we have to avoid so we can't stay focused.
Well, look, I mean, that's a huge deal. A friend of mine was an attorney in Chicago. I mean, right, she was dating this bro. He had her so screwed
Far
up.
gone, I'm
and
sure.
so, like, we were all at dinner one night, and he was there. I was like, by 3 minutes, I was like, he got to go. He did. Please. They broke up that night. I broke her down. I was like, baby, he got you so jacked up, you can't focus on your business. So like at one point, he left because he was ticked off by something. And he called, no, you ain't calling him back.
Good for
I said,
you.
matter of fact, this is about to end tonight. And I walked her through. And no one had ever talked to her that way to understand that what the vision that she had, the plan that she had, all the stuff that she wanted to do, this person was totally screwing her thing up. And then it would have set her back and go back to what the homeless dude told you. Yeah. 10 years, what happened, and you would not have that business. And so, thank goodness they broke up. I was like, no, that can't happen. I said, he got to go. He got to go.
You.
Oh, I cut a brother deep.
Good for you.
Mark, stay focused. So if y'all got anybody, some bro in y'all life, and hey, holler at it rolling, we'll take care of that real quick. And y'all got a crazy woman in your life, holler at row 2, we'll deal with that.
I think for me, the key is to not let certain forms of attention and certain forms of support and love get in the way of your ultimate goal, particularly media. And all of you who
Because the media is very seductive.
Oh my Lord, you have,
Because everybody wants to be on television.
Right.
Every entertainer, I mean, that's just the real, they might be in the biggest thing, they all want to be on TV too.
Exactly, and it gets very, very difficult, and you can start to get so caught up in that focus becomes less about the mission and about the work and about the people and more about you and more about being seen. And for young people who come through these organizations, you know, you're going to be the only one who's 28 with this, or the only one who's 25 who's part of that, and you're going to be the only one in the newspaper for this, and before you know it, you're going to be that special person. There's this moment where you're going to be the special young person. That's a different kind of decision. That's a different kind of commitment to black people. But so often you can start really thinking you're that special. You can really start thinking you're the only person that's smart in the room. You're the only person that can go on TV and talk. And so you start doing, I mean, sometimes even at Fox, and I'm sure sometimes they ask you to talk about stuff that ain't got nothing to do with politics or something that ain't got nothing to do with what you want to talk about. Right. But some folk get so caught up and they just want to be so seen that they'll pursue that instead of staying true to their mission and their lane, as Roland put it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I've told folks no. I was like, no, I don't want to talk about that.
Yep.
And the other piece is, I mean, I would say, no, call this black person. No, seriously, I remember one time Lou Dobbs show wanted to talk about what was happening with then Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. And I could have discussed it, but frankly, I was on the periphery. I said, no, you need to call Mildred Gaddis. Radio talk show host in Detroit, call her. And so that was my way of getting another voice on the air, spreading the love. And so they started calling her a lot more after that. But again, it was like, look, I don't need to be on TV. I mean, like, I'm on TV enough, call somebody else to get them on. All right, we got time for questions. Now, here are the ground rules. We got microphone, right? Angela? Okay, but here's how it's going to work. We're going to have a staffer hold the microphone, because, see, somebody hold it, we ain't getting it back. So if you got any questions, let's do 3 folks standing at a time. That way we don't have a long line standing up. So you can go to the microphone, or just raise your hand. We'll roll your way. You can ask your question. And make it precise, tight, and trust me, if it's long, I will cut you off, so please stand up. There you go. She's taking the glasses off.
Don't take the mic
Put your hand down. Do not touch the microphone.
Hi, good morning, panel. My name is Trina Williams. I'm a member of the Board of Education, Inglewood Unified School District, Inglewood, California.
All right.
California.
Now, I am very impressed. I'm also Executive Officer, Stephanie, with the NAACP Inglewood branch. But I'm very impressed, especially with Mark and Aaron. I have a major question for you guys. As you know, we have a major gang problem in our communities, LA trickling over to Inglewood and the surrounding areas. What did you two do in particular to avoid that trap?
Well,
Go ahead.
For me, I was just blessed to have my father in my life. I have a wonderful father, and so, you know, when, you know, there were situations, like I got arrested in high school for doing something stupid, but every step of the way when there was something stupid that I was doing, my dad was right there to choke me, whatever needed to be done.
Dang it. I was more scared of my dad than anybody with a gun.
Exactly.
Do what? No, he gonna kill me.
Right.
I ain't rolling with y'all.
Right. And so what changed it for me is I remember I attended Florida A&M University, and I remember, all right.
Calm down.
It was two things that same year. I attended a college visit at Florida A&M University, and I attended NABJ. That was in Philly.
Philadelphia.
And I saw 2,000 black professionals as far as media that I never knew existed. You know, I mean, I grew up in Chicago, so I saw the Warner Saunders and Diane Burns, but those are two people. And I was so inspired. I was in awe. And then attending my college visit at Florida A&M, again, thousands of young people that looked like me that all had like attainment as far as ambitious, believing we could change the world. And so when I saw those two examples, I realized that if I keep doing what I'm doing, I have something to lose. And I think as young people, particularly for young men, so sometimes we often go into situations because we feel like there is no hope. We feel like, you know, at the end of the day, I can't do that. And I think it's a matter of putting us in a position where it's like, listen, you're either going to be this, but if you straighten up, look what you can accomplish. Because you can tell a person all day, you got to do this, you got to do this, but if you don't see what it's for, like, I hated math. I never understood why, if I'm a journalism major, why I got to take calculus.
Damn, I said the same.
You know, so I didn't really do too well with that. But
we know how to count money, though.
Right. Thank you. Okay. But at the
Pythagoras theorem, we don't care.
Right. But at the end of the day, I also knew that if I didn't get that calculus, that I wasn't going to graduate, then I wasn't going to be able to do what I needed to do. So I hope that answers your question.
I communicated my way into a grade, but that's another story.
That's real.
Mark?
I mean, I don't know if I avoided those pitfalls. I think I just had the luxury of being able to get out of them. You know, and I think that that's a lot of times the difference between young black men, particularly poor young black men, and a whole lot of white folk, is not that they make less decisions or their moral achievement is any greater, but they have mechanisms and supports to get them out of it.
Right.
You know, I got caught, but one piece that you mentioned I think is so important is having male role models. I mean, my father was around. That did mean a lot. You know, he wasn't necessarily the most emotional guy. He didn't necessarily give me these emotional Cliff Huxtable type of talks, but seeing him go to work every day, seeing him come home every day, seeing him support a family, seeing him care about a family, those things meant a lot, and they represented a lot of things. But it was really other men in the community, whether it was deacons, whether it was ministers, whether it was brothers up the streets. When I got in trouble a lot, and I always got caught, and they pretty much said, you're not good at this.
You're just not good.
Right. You carry no criminals. Forget the effort. You're just not good at it. You know what I mean? You need a different lane, right? And so it was really those things, you know. But I'm reluctant. I'm a little reluctant to tell those stories because then people overstate the significance of those things. But I mean, I have a brother who went to the same schools. Same parents, same experience, same neighborhood, who's still in prison. You know what I mean? So it's not quite that simple. Some of it is about individual choice and responsibility. Some of it is about structure, and some of it is about the people you have around you. So I think all those things matter.
I think real quick, we also have to, I prefer to study the influence of the mafia, study the influence of gangs, and say, what is it about them that attracts people? And I think the same thing that attracts them to a gang is the same reason why we didn't get in trouble, because that was love, that was affection. And that is specifically from men. I mean, and so, you know, you have guys, for instance, in a gang, we gonna beat your behind if you leave in this gang. In my house, I'm gonna beat your behind if you get in the gang. The language was the same. It was coming from a different person. And I know people might think that's crazy, but we have to recognize that the reason we're seeing so many African American kids who are belonging to gang, it is because we have had men who have abandoned their responsibility. And that's why, you know, that one issue that I deal with is authentic manhood. The one thing I deal outside of the media is dealing with the issue of manhood, because that is the one reason I believe we see the destruction in our community, because of how men have absolutely abandoned their responsibility. Next question.
Overcome the adversity with the economy being down, being a black woman, being from the South. How do you overcome that to be the best journalist you can be and actually reach people and tell the stories of people that are oftentimes unheard?
Jimmy Valvano, when he was down with cancer, stood up and he said, never give up. I mean, a whole bunch of industries are downsizing. A lot of folks on Wall Street right now are being greeters at Walmart. And so we're seeing that. I just don't, I fundamentally believe that this is the greatest time in history to be a journalist, because the walls have come tumbling down. It used to be that if you had, I mean, if you had a hot story, you had to either go to a TV station, a radio station, or a newspaper and let them say, we now think it's a story. Now with the internet, you have the same power as ABC News, the New York Times, or whatever. And so that to me, so I look to the possibilities as opposed to things that are no longer there. And so I don't get consumed with, see, my biggest deal is I'm always get work. So while the rest of your folks run around saying, man, it's rough, it's tired, I got 6 jobs right now. And negotiating a 7th one. See, so I don't get so consumed with, well, how everything around me is tumbling down. It's like, no, I'm straight. Because I'm not consumed with what used to happen. And I think too many people are being concerned about, well, how things used to be. I'm like, no, I'm focused on what things are going to be in 2010, 2012, 2018, and not really worried about how it was in 1990. The world has changed. We have to change with it.
I think to speak to the question also, you can start a blog. I would highly recommend that you do so. Get my card, get Roland's card, get Mark's card. We can help, you know, point you in the right direction. Or it's all about relationships. And use this opportunity. Don't look at it as, I call it reinventing yourself. It's reinvention. And I've been there. I'm telling you, when I walked out of that job, that's a lot of money. And like Roland said, yeah, it was kind of crazy. But at the end of the day, I have a book deal. I got everything I want. Now I have it. But it meant taking risk. It meant I started my own blog, Political Intersection blog. Next thing I know, Fox was calling, CNN's calling. It doesn't take much. You just have to do it.
Yep.
Start a blog. Be focused and start telling the stories that you want told and feed them to people like us, and then we can push them. I mean, the Root.com's always looking for good contributions. You know, I'm a contributor there. We can help you, so don't ask how, just do it.
Are you an NABJ?
I was just about to say that.
It's all, even though you have a local chapter, that's the beauty of a national organization.
Right.
And that's the one thing I don't understand. I'm amazed with people who do not join existing institutions. Yes. I mean, if you are an accountant, an engineer, a business person, that's why they're there in terms of for the kind of growth that we actually need. So, next question, what we got? All right, we're gonna move you around like Phil Donahue. Move it, move it, move it.
First and foremost, I'd like to say thanks for the panel today. I'd like to ask everyone on the panel, could you explain to the audience, and especially young kids here, how important it was to keep fighting and believe in what you believed in? I joined the military a long time ago, and I was going to be nobody, kicked out of the military. Well, guess what? 30 years, I'm retiring this year as a Naval Warrant Officer. So can you just tell them how many times the door is going to be slammed in your face, or somebody's going to tell you you can't do something, and you turn that to your positive?
Stephanie, can you speak to that? Because, I mean, you had to deal with folks in the organization who were slamming doors.
Yes, when I was coming up in the Cleveland NAACP Youth Council, my advisor said every meeting that she hated me in front of everybody. And I'm thinking, like, this is a trip. I later realized that she had her own issues that she was taking out on me, and she was also intimidated by a kid, so she had a lot of stuff going on. And so I think, you know, a lot of times is...
Damn, she said she hated you in the
literally meeting. Every meeting.
We wouldn't have gotten to a second meeting. We're going to take her out.
And you know what? And part of that was, and in addition to that, my parents got so infuriated. they said, Stephanie, you have to leave this. Like, NAACP is not for you. But I had that passion. I decided to stay focused. I decided to surround myself with people who I knew were going to support me no matter what, even if my parents didn't want me to be a part. I had a mission. At 14, 15 years old, I had a mission. I knew that at the end of the day, I got to help black people no matter if black people are shutting doors in my face. And so I think, you know, just a lot of that is just really spending time with yourself. I think enough people don't like themselves, and they're scared to be alone and have quiet time and really kind of figure out who they are. I would suggest everybody do that. I would suggest also keeping a journal. I think it's great. We were talking about, Aaron and I talking about, you know, you are a different person.
Because we read the autobiography, that journal come in real handy.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you are a different person 5 years ago. And when you're 14 years old, you're going to be different when you're 21. So those are just some strategies that I would suggest.
Remember Aaron talked about NABJ? I'm going to give you this real quick about Never Give Up. When I was on the board, I presented this big proposal, and they laughed. And I was like, the hell y'all laughing at? and I remember one board member said, is he serious? Asking for all this money? I looked at her and said, yeah, I'm serious. And here's what was interesting. They did not want to vote on anything that I offered. We had a student television project, print and newspaper, that they would not fund. And so I broke the proposal up to small pieces, and everything there got passed. And we were at a board meeting about a year later, and the president pulled me aside and he says, you know, Roland, I hope you now understand that you just can't walk into the board meeting and just ask for all this stuff. And I said, Tom, really? I said, did you notice everything that was on that list I got? And he looked back, I said, yeah, I just simply broke it up. You didn't realize what the hell you were voting on. So they threw obstacles in a way, and one of the programs got passed is a program that he was actually a part of writing for. And so again, you might be in a leadership position, you might be an officer, you might be in whatever, and there are going to be people in the organization, in your community, who are going to put up roadblocks. But if you have the passion and you have the focus, you say, I'm not going anywhere, we're going to complete the task. And that, to me, I think is a failure. A lot of people, they skip that. Over here, where are we? Next question. Back here. After this question here, then we're going to come take some down here. Go ahead.
Good morning, panel. I have a question, and my name is Veronica. I'm a master's student, and I wanted to know if you had any advice for African-American men and women who are at predominantly white institutions as to how to get your leadership up. And did you all join any type of African-American executive or healthcare professional organizations?
Gotcha.
Oh, sorry.
Who went to white school?
I did.
I went to white school for graduate
Where you
school.
go?
Penn.
Penn, Stephanie, you went to Howard.
Definitely.
I was Texas A&M, really, really white. Florida A&M. Ain't there many white folks there? Sophia?
I went to San Diego State, 40,000
San Diego State?
white. And
Yeah, wasn't no bros there.
was no black folks there.
All right, go ahead.
I can speak to the question. In answer to your question, again, it gets back to, I think Mark has spoken this, Roland has spoken to this, you don't ask, you don't wait for somebody to give you permission, you just do. When I was in college, I hate to say this, in the 80s, and there was a brother named Daniel Walker in Alpha and myself, and I'm an AKA.
Of course he was an Alpha.
What we did was, we were both on student council, so we had positions that were not voting positions, but we got involved and we decided, we kind of put our heads together and decided we were going to take over, and we were going to be the first black, president and vice president in the history of the student body and CSU system, which is the California state system. 19 campuses, huge. San Diego State at that time had about 40,000 students, and again, the black population was probably 2-3%. But we knew that only 7 to 8% of the student body ever voted. So back to Roland's methodology, what we did was we got our coalition together, and then we picked off different other coalitions with the Latino students, and we got a majority of the white female groups. We built coalitions, and we won in a historic election. And so I'm saying is, and we were both, I think we were sophomores or juniors at that point. My point is that it can be done. I hear too much in this audience, and I mean this with love, I hear a little bit of I can't, and it ain't easy, and no. Get over it.
And way too many white people in this school.
Just get beyond that. Again, back to Dr. King and those folks. I mean, if they waited for permission, had they waited, we wouldn't be in this room right now because things might be real different. So all I'm saying to you is Just do it. The Nike commercial, just go do it. And you can do it. And you build your coalitions, you work your way up, you build broader coalitions. Next thing you know, like Roland said, you've taken out the people that you want to get rid of, and you had a coup d'etat, and it's all good. I'm saying
I would also say you got to get off campus too.
Right.
I think we college students, I don't care if you go to a black school, white school, we spend too much time on campus talking to each other. Man, you already in school. You know, take your time and lead people who are in the communities that oftentimes surround the campus but have no clue what's going on, like, you know, as far as political wise or whatever in the system. So I would just suggest to also get off campus and try to flex your leadership too.
Yeah, next question. Where are we? Here we go, here. Put the hand up.
All right. Hello, my name is Karen Tolles. I'm from Prince George's County, Maryland. I'm very involved politically in the county. And I have a question. When you talk about focus and vision, staying focused and also having a vision. So I have vision as to where I want to go educationally. So I'm already good with the master's, but it's other educational advancements that I want to partake in. But I have members in my community who say, listen, it's time for you to step up to be a leader. It's time for you to possibly take on a leadership role, whether it's running for office. So how do you, and I'm a believer in spending time with people who paved the way before me and to get their feedback. So how do you stay focused on your vision, but also when the opportunity is to serve, how do you, I'm struggling with, okay, now maybe it is a time for me to serve, but I also want to stay focused on that vision. So how do you, what do you have advice for that?
All right, let me ask you this first. So you said you have, hold on. You said you have educational goals. Right. Okay, but what's the vision?
Well, my vision is...
What are you trying to do?
My vision is to serve people, to provide a voice in the community, to be a better servant, to be a servant to the community. Well, maybe I just don't know.
There we go.
I'm just going to keep it real.
So what you just offered, you offered a very broad, I'm willing to serve people. Anybody working at McDonald's, you can serve $1 million a day.
No, I'm good.
It's my whole point. So again, I think part of the issue is when you talk about you educational things you want to achieve. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to make a judgment. Sounds to me like you are still staying in school because you don't know what you're trying to do.
No, that's not it.
What do you want to do? What kind of job do you want to do? Do you work somewhere right now?
Yes. I'm a lobbyist right now.
Is that what you want to do?
No.
So you're going to school to do what?
I guess my overall question is my overall question is that an opportunity has been presented for me to serve in a certain capacity within the county or the state, but I have a certain path that I want to go on. So now this opportunity for me to take on a new leadership role, how do you?
Okay.
How do you have advice?
I'm gonna ask you again. What is the path that you want to be on?
I mean,
Stephanie said, if you could have any job you wanted, what would it be?
If you could create that job.
Right. No. What is the path? No. She said, I have a path. What's the path? Where you on that road? Where you trying to walk to?
I don't know.
That's my point.
Y'all need to talk.
That's my point.
Right.
I mean, I'm not trying to. This wasn't actually messing with you. Right, and that's not my point. But here's the deal. You were saying, I am on a path, but you could not articulate the path that you're on, which means you are not on a path. It really means you're wandering in the desert. So really what has to happen, you've got to sit down yourself with someone you highly respect, and so they can say, what are you actually trying to do? And then, if that's what you want to do, that's where you want to go, then how do we get there? There's no one way to do it. That's the critical thing. And I think a lot of people go through that. And so a lot of people stay in school, they do different things, never really get into what they want to do. They look up, now they're 40, 45, 50, and they still haven't figured out what the actual path is. And so you have to do what I call a self-assessment. And that is sit down by yourself in a quiet space and say, who am I? What do I love? What's my passion? What is it that I really, really want to? Is there somebody or something? Is someone doing something that I really want to do? Then you begin to craft your game plan to get there. Otherwise, You're just sitting here wondering, and no one will be able to answer the question because you never even fully answered the question yourself. Right.
That's it.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. I am Andy Lungisa, the Deputy President of the ANC Clique, also the Vice President of the Pan-African Youth Union, also the National Chairperson of the National...
You got a lot of titles. What's your question?
In South Africa.
What's your question?
I think first, before I pose my question, let me congratulate the work which is done by Black Caucus here in the US. My question, it will be around about the issue of organizing. To organize, I think is a very important topic, which I think all of us will have a responsibility of making sure that we take that topic forward. Because I've observed that all the people have raised number of issues that they want to be organized in the US, especially on the current juncture. I think it's an issue which we must be able to put it in the proper context, take into account the struggles and the evolution of black people, especially in the US. I think that's the issue which I think we must be able to pay attention to. Thank you very much.
Okay. Question?
What was the question? I didn't understand.
And that is the issue of organizing.
Well, I think, let me just make a quick comment about organizing, particularly the young people. I think young folk, myself included, our generation has access to a whole new wave of media resources that we can use, not, for example, YouTube, Facebook, MySpace, Twitter. And instead of just using that to post something funny on somebody's wall or to retweet, you know, some joke about Kanye West, we could actually organize around those tools. I mean, one of the interesting things about Gina, part of how Gina spread so virally was through YouTube and through Facebook. So as part of our organization, I do believe, has to come through these digital, what we call new media outlets, which allow you to talk to people across the globe. You can organize a movement from Philadelphia with people in Tokyo without ever getting off your couch. The underside of that, though, is sometimes nobody ever gets off their couch. And so we end up with this entirely digital movement. We never talk to one another. We never meet with one another. And there's something special about organizing and being activists in the same room with one another. Actually leaving the crib and actually going to protests, actually standing or sitting in some place, actually pushing back against oppressive forces. That's something else. So I think we need to use the new medias, but we can't allow them to become fetishes that we use at our own peril.
2 more questions. Let's go. Get your hands on the microphone.
Sorry. Thank you. My name is Gina Calder, and I'm from New Haven, Connecticut. And I was listening to what Roland and, Sophia, is it? Sophia were saying.
It was Sophia, Aaron,
yes,
Stephanie,
about taking
Mark.
over. No, Sophia and Roland about taking things over.
Gotcha, okay.
I'm working on a political coup right now, and realize that I can't do it by myself, but the people that I need to engage and kind of get to support this to actually happen are very scared. And I'm trying to figure out how to convince them that there's nothing to be scared about. Like, it's either now or never. We have to do this.
Okay, let's check.
You have any...
No guns involved, right?
No.
Okay, let's just start right there. When I say cool, I'm talking about a nice, cool
It won't be
suit
violent.
on.
It won't be violent. It won't be violent.
Okay, all right. Just
it
checking.
needs to happen. It absolutely needs to happen. We're talking about a complete turnover of leadership. I need some type of assistance in terms of a strategy around convincing people that it's okay to do this. We need to do this.
Workplace, educationally, give me a context.
This is municipal government.
So you want to pull a coup in the municipal government?
Yes.
Like working for a government or like running for political office?
This is political office.
Gotcha.
Okay. So what's your question?
How to convince the people that I need to help me do this to not be scared.
Let's talk off stage about that.
Okay.
Can I say one thing to that? Part of it too is recognizing like who you need to leave behind, because everybody doesn't need to be a part of that coup that you're trying to do. And sometimes I think we want to include everybody in the movement. All this. No, some folks really need to be left behind. And so I would say, just assessing those people, and it only takes a few people. It takes a few people and it takes hard work. Because if you organize and you really go out to your community, because you will start to see more people who are supportive of what you're trying to do than I'm sure you would have even imagined. But you have to, put your feet to the street and go and talk to as many people as you can, and everybody can do something. And I think we look for specific types of people to help us in specific ways when trying to figure out how can everybody with their talents contribute to what it is that we're trying to do, even if that means that you singing on the corner to talk about our next meeting.
And baby girl, remember the definition of coup. Okay, coup means you got to keep it covert. It's got to be quiet. If you're trying to bring in,
you don't put that on Facebook.
Yeah. Right. You don't told too many people.
She just said New Haven.
Yeah, I mean, if you told that many people and they're afraid, they're not the people you need in a coup, because scary people ain't going to work. You got to have some, like she said.
Yeah.
So remember, coups to keep it quiet.
Right.
Over.
So after the meeting, we're going to give you some Che Guevara advice on how to do a coup. All right, last question. Yeah, put your hand down. It's all right. Put to your side.
Good morning.
There you go.
Good morning. My name is Billy Sanders. I just moved here to the DC area. I also work with Impact as the new director of diversity and special needs. I came with a vision. My vision is to develop deaf entertainment television. We have over 20 million deaf and hard of hearing people in the United States. I think DC is one of the greatest areas to start something like that. I have a vision, but I don't have a path. I believe that God is going to put me in meetings with a lot of people, or in touch with a lot of people, such as Impact and such as yourselves. If you have any words of wisdom, any encouragement, I definitely would take that.
Aaron?
I would just say, just begin executing the vision, or what you believe your vision to be. Like I said, visions don't change, plans do. So, in me executing my vision, I made a lot of mistakes, but then you just tweak it. You meet the wrong people, you meet the right people. But the key is just to begin the execution of what that is, whether it be building a relationship, utilizing this platform like as you just did. I mean, there's so many ways that you can do it. You just have to start somewhere.
And also, I mean, you in many ways you answered your own question, and that is and let me walk some folks through about God.
Break it down, Ron.
First of all, folks, I have people come to me and say, God has put this vision in my spirit. And I always ask them, have you gone to Scripture with your vision? No. I say, have you visited Habakkuk chapter 2?
There you go.
Write the vision down, make it plain. Also, when you read that, it speaks to the issue of patience. The third piece I've always also learned is that God will, if you read the story of Jesus and Peter, when Peter was walking on the water, when he stopped believing, he started sinking. But if you read the scripture, it does not say that Jesus stuck his hand in the water and lifted him out. Jesus stuck his hand out. Peter had to stick his hand out. And so, if you believe that God has put this in your spirit, you also have to put yourself in position for the blessing. That's it. And so, what are the places you go to? Who are the people that you meet? Are you prepared? Do you have all your information? Because you might run into the right person at the right time at the right place, and then you say, well, I ain't got a business card. I don't have anything on me. How can I get you? And then your opportunity just walked out, and God like, look, I tried to hook you up, but you were not prepared. Many people are not always prepared. I would say you need to be always prepared 24 hours a day. No matter where I go in the country or whatever I'm doing, I am prepared for any conversation at any time, whether it's in this room, at park, at any other club. I don't care where I meet somebody, roll is ready to roll anywhere. And so I would say you have to always be prepared. That's where most people lose it. The last thing is you also have to have the follow-up. I cannot tell you, I was in Los Angeles, ran into a brother at Roscoe Chicken and Waffle House who he did comic strips. And he said, brother, I got these comic strips. I'm really trying to get myself out there. And all these people come through here. Nobody gives me a shot. And he's going on and on. One, I ain't trying to hit a long story. I said, at the time, I said, I run blackamericaweb.com. I said, which is Tom Jones' website. I got 600,000 users. I said, I make the decision what goes on the site. I ain't got to ask anybody. Here's my card. I want you to email me. I said, and I will give you a platform to get your comic strips out on a national site, 600,000 people. Never emails. I've run into many people, and they've done that, and I'm going, well, you can't say nobody tried to help you. Right. So that's the other piece. If you're in position, you follow up, and then it's not always, how can you help me? It's, how do you build a relationship? Because that person might know something. They may not be able to help you, but they might know somebody else. So, but you have to always be in position and be prepared. final comments from our panel?
One other thing on
go ahead.
Roland's point, just again to young folks who are,
This is part of your final comment.
Yeah, that's fine. to make your way, he talked about follow-up and follow-through. I can't tell you the value of a thank you note. Write the thank you note. Handwrite. Don't send the email. Don't Twitter to people. Sit down and write a nice...
You can't write these days. You better send an email.
I'm saying, but just do the stationery. Get your little monogram stationery. Send a follow-up note. This brother here is the executive is here. Am I right about that? You will remember that person that wrote you the note. And everybody likes a thank you note. That's my last comment, which is follow through, stay focused, follow up, pull the coups when you need to, keep them quiet, and that's what you need to do. And thank you for having me.
Sophia Nelson. Aaron?
As young people, you know, I know we're in the habit of asking for things, but when you meet somebody, I think as Roland alluded to, ask that person, whether it be anybody up here, what you can do to help them. Because so many people are asking for things. And then you position yourself and say, this is how I can help you. Automatically, you're being perceived in a completely different light. And, you know, you'd be surprised what a little persistence gets you. Not stalking, but persistence. I mean,
fine line.
Right. And I'll simplify it from the vantage point. If you're a young man and you're trying to court a lady, you have to be persistent. You know, you can't just say, hey, I'm such and such, and hit me on Facebook, and then walk away, because there's going to be at least 5 other dudes that's trying to get her. You'll probably win through being persistent, strategic, and savvy. So I'll just leave it at that. Use those things.
Aaron Arnold.
I don't have much to say. I'm just really grateful to be here, and not just to be invited to the CBC, but as we started this conversation, and now I'm sort of reflected back on that train station, and I can't help but be somewhat overwhelmed that not that much later in life I'm here with all of you, and I give thanks for that, and I'm grateful for that. And I think for all the young people out there, anybody who's moving into a leadership position, just to keep fighting and keep struggling and keep reading and keep studying and keep believing that anything is possible, because it really, really is. If there's any way I can be a resource to anybody, please let me know.
Mark Lamont Hill. Y'all know I had to tweet, fool, you still ain't gonna have a PhD in 10 years. I had to tweet that one. Stephanie?
I'm 28 years old. The national president of NAACP, Ben Jealous, is 36 years old. Your age, where you come from, your background, your family should never be a barrier to you achieving your dreams.
That's right.
Staying focused, having a vision is so key. I represent 23,000 young people across this country who are involved in the NAACP, and we need passionate, dedicated individuals who can be advisors to these kids around this country from the age of 5 to 25. Please talk to me about that, because again, we need dedicated folks to help our kids. Lastly, October 8th, we're having a national town hall meeting around healthcare to get people of color and young people's voices out on the issue. It will be broadcast live on the NAACP website, naacp.org. Tune in. You can tweet and Facebook your questions into the panel, October 8th, 7 to 9 p.m.
Stephanie Brown. My final comment is this. That was a bank in Texas years ago. I'm born and raised in Texas. Texas Commerce Bank. They had a slogan. It said, the time for Texas is now. And I will say the time for you is now. And when I say the time, Sophia said those 3 things start next week. No. Start now. Start today. Use this moment to build the relationships, to network, to meet people. For you, if you have to sit down and skip the next 2 sessions to go in the back of this room and try to sort out your vision, do that.
Yes.
If you have to say, I'm going to skip the party tonight because I need to deal with myself and my vision to be a leader, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because I'll tell you, when Aaron talked about NABJ, I skipped many an alpha party, many a road trip, because I was focused on exactly what I am doing. And so you do not have to wait for anybody's permission. You do not have to wait for somebody's invitation. You can begin to put yourself in the position to be the kind of leader that you want to be right now. But you have to answer the most important question: what are you prepared to do? Congressman Thompson, we certainly appreciate it. Angela, thank you so very much. Folks, we are done. Thank you very much for being here.
Jackie Bird. She was the one who gave me the bone marrow transplant.
Save a life while you can in your lifetime.